All right, guys, welcome. This is episode 1 of the Bearzi Podcast. And unfortunately, I am going to be guestless today. My first guest for episode 1 wasn't able to make it. But I think I'm going to call this episode Just Start. Because I actually had a million excuses to not film this first podcast. As you can see in my surroundings, I don't have a proper office or desk or table to film a podcast. I'm actually using my wife's vanity mirror for her makeup as a table. There's stuff all over the place. And on top of that, I had no one to talk to. As most podcasts, you need a second person to converse with. And it's pretty weird to do a podcast by yourself. But I've been a firm believer that action is one of the best things you can take, and just starting is the best decision that you can make the majority of the time. Now, for some background information for those that don't know me, my name is Derek. I am a YouTuber, creator, and aspiring filmmaker who has been on a long journey of self-improvement and self-development, as I've tried many different types of niches and different types of styles of video to create on YouTube, but nothing really stuck. Let me take this off. Yeah, that sounds a lot better. So to give you an example, I created my YouTube channel in 2007, I think, if you were to look at the date. And for the past 12 to 13 years, I've always wanted to create a YouTube channel and just be a creator and start something. And I always had this struggle and hurdle of trying something, posting videos and creating content, no one watching it, getting upset and deleting it. And recently I went on a podcast hosted by my friend Tim and Jay called the Bearzi Podcast. And I told them this story about how I always wanted to be a content creator for years. And I always got stuck with the expectation of my videos to somehow take off for some reason. I always expected that whenever you would create a video, post it on YouTube, it would just instantaneously experience exponential growth and just gain subscribers and views, even if it was shit. Like, even if it was 480p, I had some weird expectation that it would grow. And for years, I created content. First, it was mostly basketball and video games and really weird fringe things, and nothing ever really stuck. And over time, I would just get demoralized and end up deleting those videos, which in hindsight, I really regret. It would be nice if I could look back on those first videos that I made 10, 12 years ago, and now they're all completely gone. But the main point that I wanted to talk about for this podcast is to just start. Just start the thing that you want to do and be consistent with it. And over time, it will grow. And like I said earlier, there's a million excuses I could have had to not start this podcast. Like, I don't have a proper desk or a room. I don't have a guest. I have nowhere to set up any of my, look where I am right now. I'm just jammed in a corner, just talking to my mic. But facing inaction and deciding to not take action is one of the worst decisions you can make. Now, on my main YouTube channel, I mostly create self-improvement and self-development short films or little mini documentaries, and I like to share my ideas on how I've improved myself throughout the years by trying new things and challenging myself in different ways. And I wanted to create this podcast kind of like it is. I see it as the yin to my yang. I want my main channel to pursue self-improvement and work on my filmmaking and storytelling, but I also want an outlet to just relax, be myself, and just talk about anything random, fringe, or in between. And I think this is a perfect medium for that, to create a podcast. And I'm going to try doing this video casting thing. I don't even know if, hopefully this is working, but I'm going to try recording both audio and video and see where this takes me. As the past couple weeks or so, I've really been working on improving my videography skills and storytelling ability by just sheer hard work and determination. Now, some background about myself for those who don't know anything about me. I am basically a brand new filmmaker. I bought a Sony A6500 and A6400 earlier in 2019, somewhere in the middle. And I don't even have a full frame camera. Like, these are APS-C crop cameras, and which work perfectly fine for me. That's another thing that can really hold you back, is thinking that by not having a full frame camera or not having a nice gear or lens, that you won't be able to start that creative endeavor that you want to pursue. And that's the wrong way to think about things. And a lot of these things that I talk about on my main channel are about work ethic and determination and never giving up. And I would be a hypocrite if I did take the easy way out and not start this podcast right now. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about too was I do have a full-time job. So this is not something that I do by trade. I'm not a filmmaker by trade by any means. I do work a normal 9 to 5 like everyone else, but I believe that with sheer hard work and determination, you can pursue your dream on the side. And I know that a lot of people will say, well, that's easy because of X, Y, and Z. You're young, or you have money to start something, or whatever that excuse is that people come up with. But what I always firmly believe is that if you are really determined and passionate about something, then you'll make the time to create that content or start that business or work on that first podcast episode by yourself and just do it. Like right now, I feel so weird right now. I feel so like outside of my comfort zone. I'm probably like sweating through this gray shirt, and that's just the truth, right? But if you don't punch fear in the face and start the thing you want to do, you can never work on the steps to getting to your goal. And part of this podcast will be not only self-improvement, as I want my main channel to cover most of those topics, but I feel like it's good to have a second outlet to talk about more casual things and just enjoy yourself, as I'm a firm believer that whenever you pursue any type of creative endeavor, whatever it is, if it doesn't have to be social media, it doesn't have to be with a camera, but whenever you pursue a creative endeavor, you really need to enjoy the process for it to flourish and get to where you want it to go. And that's what I think this is going to be. Now, I could easily make this podcast completely about self-improvement, which would be related to my direct channel. But I think it'll be good if I get a variety of guests and talk about a variety of different topics and subjects to maybe broaden my horizon and thinking on the world and how I approach my life in general. Because I think it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, or what walk of life you come from. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a story to tell that can be interesting. Everyone can give you some type of value or information or knowledge that you wouldn't know. And I think that's what I want to try to achieve with this podcast. Now, originally, I was hoping to have a guest, but who knows? If I don't have one, then maybe I'll just keep continuing to film by myself until I have one. And I think that's okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with doing something that's poor. As obviously this podcast is going to be shit. It's going to suck. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be the worst work or worst podcast I ever make in my life. But if I never start doing the thing, if I never post the very first episode, then I'll never get to those next steps along the way. And I've always been a firm believer of visualization, and I talked about this in the other podcast that I was on, about how you need to think clearly in your mind what you want to do with something. And along the way, your brain will kind of just manifest the steps that it'll take in order to get you to your end goal. And this is one of like the best things that you can do to improve at a skill, get better at a trade, or I don't know, like start some successful business. And if you never start the thing in the first place, you can never get on to step 2, 3, 4, and 5 and move on from there. So, okay, so I think that's pretty much it. We'll wrap the episode up real short, as this will mainly be a reminder for myself on where I started. I definitely will want to look back at this point and see how bad this podcast was, but I promise it will get better over time. I'll work on it for sure, and hopefully we'll get a guest in at some point. But what I want to say in closing is that if I can start, then so can you. There's no excuse. Just go out and start that thing you want to do, regardless of the situation or regardless of what tools that you don't have in place. And you never know where it'll take you. So hopefully we'll get better at this podcast stuff. Still feel really weird talking to myself. This is definitely not normal or comfortable or natural at all. So we'll see you guys next week, and thanks for watching. Peace.